Hi, my name is Petra Monaco, and I am the CEO of the Rebel's Den. And with me today, I have Christine, who I went to check out her website and has the most amazing stories. So thank you for being part of my interview series.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your journey, because I think it's so incredible that you've had some challenges and still decided to do what it is you're doing. But part of your journey was like, this is why I do what I do now. So talk about it.
Absolutely. I was born legally blind and with the ability to kind of see and communicate with spirit. And, I was born, I'm 46 years old, so I wasn't born now when this is becoming kind of like a more normal and sought after thing. I was born 46 years ago and into a Roman Catholic family who had no ability to sort of understand that. And so I kind of quickly learned how to keep that whole side of myself quiet. Like I didn't share what I saw with other people until I turned 37. And my mom watched an Oprah show and called me, and she was crying, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know that I had like a psychically gifted child. I'm so sorry. Like now I have a total context for how you are. And you should use this to help other people." And people had already kind of been coming to me. It was weird. Like people would come to me and say, "Hey, I hear you talk to dead people," or "Hey, I hear you do hands-on healing." And I never really put it out there. I was a yoga and meditation teacher and Ayurvedic practitioner. So when people asked me to use my intuition, I was kind of like, how do they know this? It was like, who told you about me? And they would tell me some random person's name that I didn't even know. And I was like, they know I'm psychic and I don't. So
Yeah.
So it just sort of people started trickling in, which really then made me aware that like if we open our hearts to spirit and say, I'm here to be of service, spirit will send us people. Like I wasn't looking for people to help. People came to me and asked. And so I kind of, even though I was doing readings and intuitive healing and things like that, I really kind of came out and started doing it more from the age of 37 until now. And just been an incredible journey of my own learning through the people that I speak to about death and what happens after we die and, karma and all that. So, at the age of 20, I went and lived in India, got married to a person who was a Hindu priest, spent like 2 decades of my life serving as, the wife of a priest, I guess, like serving the community there and learning how to deal with all different types of personalities. That was an incredible part of my learning. So that taught me a lot about mantra and the laws of the natural laws and like all of that, which I am now getting ready to start teaching. So exciting to see now all the people who are having an awakening. It's just incredible to see like everyone, I was like a very closeted healer at one point, and now I'm like, oh my God, people are asking me things that are like so much more advanced than 20 years ago when I started my yoga studio, so I'm excited to begin teaching some of the things that I've learned through my experiences thus far. And then in the year 2010, I was burned in our temple on one of our festival days and had to then use everything I learned. I burnt 65% of my body.
Oh, wow.
And I had to learn how to use everything that I'd been using to help other people on myself to heal, like not only my skin, but PTSD. My doctors told me I wouldn't walk again, that I wouldn't be able to teach yoga anymore. And I told them I'm going to be teaching my first yoga class January 1st. I was hurt November 10th, and I did indeed teach my first class in January.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
it was amazing. I was supposed to have three more surgeries in addition to the two that I already had. And I said, surgery hurts. I don't want it anymore. And I just, I called up all my healer pals. My mom called up all of my like healing community and asked them to do distance healing on me. Called one of
Yeah.
my friends who's a herbalist. He made a couple of oils for me. And much to my doctor's surprise, like 4 months later, I was completely healed. Um, when they did my grafting surgery, I had to lay there for 10 days without moving. And the doctor took off my bandages, turned my leg over, and said, oops. And I was like, what do you mean, oops? And he said, oh, well, you started hemorrhaging in the surgery. And so I didn't get the opportunity to graft the whole back of your leg. I was like, honey, you say oops when you leave the milk out on the counter. You don't say oops when you don't graft the whole back of someone's
No
leg.
kidding.
So they wanted to do more grafting surgeries. And I was like, hell no. Like, grafting
Yeah.
is tremendously painful. And so, yeah, like much to the surprise of all the nurses and everyone who worked with me, my leg healed completely, like from November to April. Like 3rd-degree burns don't typically heal like that. So that took like, I mean, that gave me such a wide range of like life experiences that I could then apply to the people who came to me. I was sent to a psychiatrist because of the PTSD that I had, like flashbacks and stuff. And I just used meditation to even heal that, right? And so like by the time I got in front of the psychiatrist, it was like 4 months later, and he asked me, how did you spontaneously heal your PTSD? And I was like, honey, it took me 3 months. It weren't spontaneous. And he was like, girl, like people don't heal PTSD. Like people die with, like,
Yeah.
he's like, we don't have techniques to effectively cure PTSD. He's like, I'm working with people for 10 years that didn't suffer, even as an extreme experience as a burn like this, but they're still, working through it. And so he asked me what techniques I used and like wrote them all down on his little pad. I was like, I'm going to find people who can help my clients with this,
I really love that. Here's the thing that caught me. Like literally the first line on your website was, I'm visually impaired. Now, I'm a special needs mom, right? And I encourage
Oh,
my son to always push forward, to always keep going, no matter what, because I don't believe in the word disability. Like he's capable to do of anything that he can do, no matter what. And I love that
oh.
you allow yourself to stop you from creating your life, from keeping forward, to going with the motion, and even going to India, right? Like, because I think so often, like, and even society and stereotypical, what we hear of a disability of any kind, it's like, well, you can't do that. And here you are, no matter what, like, I'm still showing up. I might not be able to see you, but I can do the work.
Oh,
Again,
I attribute that to my parents. Like they never had an attitude that I could, like, they never stopped me from doing anything. My dad taught me how to ride a bike, like, which finally at the age of 42, when I like fell off and sprained my ankle, I was like, I think I'm putting the bike into retirement. Like now I have kids, like,
yeah.
um, yeah,
But
yeah.
I love, well, that the support that you had absolutely should, it's tremendous that you had that and that showed up, because not everybody has that kind of a support when they're born with a extra challenge. I hate the word special needs. I actually call it an extra need, because it's just a little bit extra, right? He isn't any different from other kids, except he's got some extra stuff.
Yeah. I
and,
call it differently abled.
yeah, and I think having that support is definitely it's your testimony that you've had the support you needed to ride a bike, even though you can't probably see the road properly.
Yeah, exactly. Perhaps not the safest of things to be doing, but yeah.
Yeah, but it just shows to your character too. Allowing that support from your parents to just really what's the word I'm looking for? To really embody you and your mindset to say, yeah, I have to support. My parents believe in me, so who am I not to believe in myself? You know what I mean?
And I think we're born, like, okay, so I was born with that impairment, right? And with the additional like intense clairvoyance, and that was just normal to me. Like, so like if no one outside of you makes a big deal about how you're different, you don't consider yourself to be different.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely believe that as well. Truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I, then I kept reading, and I'm like, they're getting burned. Like my father was burned and had to have grafts when, God, I was 13 when all that happened. I
Oh, wow.
didn't go through it, but I know he didn't want me to see him because of all the stuff that was happening. So I was just like you're so strong. So I was like, I haven't even met her and I like her.
Aw, thank you. That
um,
was, yeah, that burn incident really, like, that was the first time in my life that I couldn't see the silver lining in that moment. And that was like the total shakedown of my faith, but
Absolutely.
then I had like my family members from India. My father-in-law was doing a special prayer for me where he would pour water over like one of our gods, and I could feel it. Like, my sister-in-law phoned me and I was like, I feel like cold water is streaming over my body. And she's like, oh my God, my dad is doing a prayer like that for you. And like, then you just know that there's this grace. First of all, like, I was so touched that my father-in-law was doing this for me, like sitting there in Pittsburgh, I think is where they lived at that time, maybe, or wherever they lived. And I'm here in Canada and I could feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That did something to me. And then all the community members who, like, my room was quarantined, but they would like come in. There was like a little window and they would do prayers in front of my window, even though I couldn't see them. Like, I was just so touched that people loved me that much, right? To take
Yeah.
time out of their day to do that.
Yeah.
And then my sister-in-law was simultaneously sick. She had a cold. So I was doing energy work on her while I was laying in the hospital bed. And I'm sorry, I'm crying here.
No,
It
that's
just
right.
made me realize, like, I thought that I was extremely faithful, but then even when I wanted to turn my back on God or spirit or whatever we choose to call that, it came from me. It was like, hey, here I am. You need me,
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And then turning it around, let's take your your gift, your mediumship, psychic abilities, whatever you want to call them. Let's put them aside from it, because you also then turned around and embodied that healing even more, because that's what you do now, right? Like, not just the mediumship, but you also help people heal through, is it called pranic healing? I think I got that right.
well, I've always done healing work, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Um, and then my sister-in-law, oh my God, all grace to her. Cause like, she told me, you're a natural healer and you should learn Reiki and you should learn pranic healing. So she was learning all this stuff in India and then saying, and then sharing it with me. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that experience. And yeah, that happened to me. And then I would add on and she would say, yeah, that teacher told us that too. Right. So like, I just knew all that. And so she was the one who was like, you should take these modalities. So I studied like a ton of modalities. Um, but yeah, but it was always in there, and so I just found sort of like the external sources that could fill in the blanks or give me protocols with people, right? So, because what I used to do was take people's suffering into my own body. And so then, so there was this one time when one of my clients came to me and I was touching her and I said, your husband has a rash over his whole body. And she said, yeah. And I was like, it's itchy and it hurts him, hey? And she said, yeah. And the next day I woke up with that rash
Oh,
over my
wow.
entire, like, everywhere that you can imagine having a rash. It was on my body, but it didn't hurt. And so she called me the next day and said, I don't know whatever you did, but he doesn't have the rash anymore. And so, I had this rash for a week. It wasn't going away. I was putting like aloe and coconut, whatever I could think of. And then one of my Indian friends saw me and she said, you took someone's black magic off them. And I was like, how do you know? And she said, because of your rash. And then she took in India, they have all these different techniques to remove like black magic or weird stuff, right? So she took a coconut and used it to clear me. And literally, like, probably about half an hour after she did it, I could see the rash receding. And 2 days later, it was like totally gone, you know? So then when I learned all these different modalities, I learned how to heal without taking it inside my body, you know? And then I just, oops.
Oh, what is?
I think it was my low battery. Shoot. And so then I just kept learning, you know, then as I would learn things, I would get more intense cases to work on. So, you know, I spent 5 years working with schizophrenic people, 5 years working with addicts. Now I'm kind of working, it seems like now my guides are bringing me people who want to do what I did, right? Like they might have a gift or they might be interested in helping or being healers, and I can help them apparently. So I guess that's the next step, you know?
But it's really, really great because so often we have things happen and they're happening to us, they're happening for us. Like there's this different, like there's that balance of happening to us, right? Where we're a victim one moment, but then they're happening for us and then how we move through them, right? Like what are you going to do with that? Like, okay, yes, you're a victim at this point, but now you have to decide, do you stay there or do you choose to see it where it's happening for you, and how can you use it to move forward to maybe even help other people? Because my personal story, aside from my son, isn't quite as dramatic as yours. I think I grew up in foster care, right? Like that's a totally different path, and it happened to me, but it also happened for me, right? But it took me years to figure that out, that I could use what I've experienced in foster care specifically and then turn it into my current business, right?
Oh man, absolutely. Absolutely.
It took years to figure this out, to step away from all of the victimhood, right? And I think that's why I love your story so much, because you didn't allow to sit with it for long. Yes, you were in that experience, but you didn't like sit in it for years. You're just like, no, I'm gonna do this. By this point, I will be doing this again. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes it like, you know, it can be really hard to come up out of some struggles, hey, and to have the turnaround, right?
Absolutely.
And I think what I noticed when I worked with addicts, well, anyone who is marginalized or like who has, you know, had like an improper power dynamic.
Yep.
There's a lot of worthiness to work through, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like there's a lot of like having to come up into like, and that was one of the biggest lessons I learned when I got burnt. You know, my marital relationship was difficult, right? Like, and led me to believe that I was, you know, and yeah, some of my life experiences prior, you know, with sexual assault and rape, it led me to believe that I didn't deserve comfort and I didn't deserve love, but I wanted to give everyone that love, right? When I got burnt and was on the receiving end, right? When people are like, you know, one of my nurses made, because I was burnt like from, you know, here down, right? So then to put bandages on your tummy, they move, right? So like, so this lady sat there and made for an hour like a vest out of gauze bandage to hold my tummy bandages in place, right? And I'm like, why are you doing that? And she said, well, I want you to feel comfy. I was like, you're treating me like I deserve love. And she's like, honey, all of us do, right? And so that was one of the biggest lessons from the burn, is like, my body is sacred. It's sacred to other people, so it ought to be sacred to me, right?
I love that we all deserve love, because it certainly took me, it feels like forever, to figure out that, you know, we deserve love. I mean, I lived through abandonment and similar sexual assault and all things that made me not feel safe. Like I was not safe in this world.
Yeah,
and
totally.
worthy of goodness, of love, right? Because that's what love is. Love is goodness, no matter what. And
Mm-hmm.
then I have amazing kids that sort of like, oh, they love me unconditional, no matter if I screw up or not. They still love me, which is really kind of cool.
That's how I
You know,
feel
they might
about
not
my kids
be anything
too.
in the
Yeah.
moment, but it's like they're taught me that I do deserve love. And then I start, and my friend circle is really small. I'm an empath, right? And I'm intuitive, so I keep my friend circle pretty small, because I don't need anybody else's energy. Like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but the friends that I do have, they're giving of love. They're sharing of who they are with me, and even you sharing who you are with me. I'm just like awestruck by that.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because it's been a hard road to even figure out what I do, and just to be here and the ability to talk to people about their story, their journey. It was just like, people are sharing their part of with them, and I'm just like, oh, like, and I don't do mushy.
You got tough probably, eh?
Yeah, but I'm just, like, I'm so like, this is my lesson. It's like people are willing to share their story with me. You know what I mean? And that's my thing. It's like, no matter how much I might distance myself, how much I keep myself in this office, people are still willing to share their story with me, to share their love with me, to share. And I love that you've learned that as well, because it's so hard when you struggle with PTSD. No matter where your PTSD comes from, because PTSD,
Absolutely.
and to find that, I think it's probably so profound, because I don't think a lot of people know. Like, they're, especially if you're still struggling with mindset and you're struggling with whether you're being a victim and how to move through that, out of it, you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel worthy. You don't feel worthy of anything, not just love, but anything. Like,
Anything. Yeah.
any,
Yeah. And
whether it
it's
be a good job, whether it be a good relationship with your kids, with your partner, with whomever.
and it's weird how it seeps out. Like with my partner yesterday, he was like, he said, okay, I'm going to do this. Do you mind preparing food? So I made the food and then I served it on a plate to him. And he's like, okay, so where's your food? And I was like, I made it for you. And he's like, in what world do you think I'm going to eat alone and not eat, like, and I'm just going to eat in front of you? And he's like, you have to eat too, right? And it's like, yeah, it's like weird where conditioning kind of pops up and you just have to be like, oh, okay, that's another opportunity to like put the weird power dynamic aside, put the abuse aside, and just like move into your own like equality in the world, right?
Yeah, I love that. I Ironically, even though I grew up in foster care, I didn't have role models about relationships, right? Like, I had zero knowledge on what a relationship looked like, whether it be with a partner or a friend or any of that.
Yeah,
And
of
so
course.
the 1950s housewife was sort of like my modality,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
right? Like,
sister.
you cater to him,
Definitely.
cater to him, you cater to him, you cater to him, and you cater to the kids. And then when my son has a rare genetic disorder, and underwent some transplants and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was like, whoa, how can I be a good mom to him if I don't take care of myself? So that was sort of like, oh,
Wow.
I'm not a 1950s housewife at all. Like, I'm probably the extreme opposite of that. I come first. And it
Wow.
sounds, right, like, it sounds so selfish on that because we're taught to not put ourselves first. We're literally taught to put everybody else before us. I mean,
I
that's
think
what we're
that's
taught.
that's like one of the hugest lessons for like parents though, right? Like if you're going to give it back to them, if you're going to be present for them, you have to be
You've
satisfied too. You have to be healthy. You have to be
Yeah, you have to
whole.
take care of yourself. And I think that's why when we have experiences like yours or like mine, like, we'll figure that out through that process. But I'm always like, I want to tell people to not put other people first.
I know,
Because
and that's
if
a
you,
hard one. Like coming up, I just feel like there's so much of an awakening of like, that whole tower pyramid, that power. What the heck did I just say? the pyramid of power, like where like a few people are at the top, it's collapsing, and it's like all of us are equal here. It's being
Yeah,
leveled, right? And so it's so
absolutely.
cool to watch all the realizations, all the I love epiphany, right? Because it's like you have an epiphany and then you don't even remember the reality that you believed in before that,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Well, yeah, and so I started to put myself first, and of course, that means rocking the boat because all of a sudden I have
mm-hmm.
boundaries. I have boundaries, and people don't know what to do with them, and even in my own relationship, it was like, but you're used to, and I'm like, keyword being, I
Yeah,
used to,
yeah.
I no longer, and that was really hard to maneuver through, to not, because I'm a recovering codependent as well, right? So I was like, to really stick with that. I am Petra. This is what I stand for. I'm going to take care of myself first. Then it'll be my partner or my kids. Like it's one or the other, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's so hard to claim that, to step into that.
Oh yeah, and you get a lot of backlash.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Like I'm not a hugger. I'm from Germany, and hugging is not a social, like we hug people. I'm gonna say Germans do hug people, but it's very private and it's very personal. We just don't hug anybody going down the street. Like, hey, how's it going? Hug. Like that's not a thing. You know
Oh
what
my
I mean?
God, I hug everything. Trees,
And
animals.
for me, it's a cultural thing, but it's
Yeah,
more
yeah.
than that. It's also
No.
my PTSD and my trauma and just who I like. This is who I am. I'm not a hugger. That doesn't mean I don't hug, right? Like I do hug people. Like I'm thinking of it, like I hug them. But it started with my kids to learn how to hug them because I didn't get
Oh,
hugged growing up. I mean, there's that reality. I didn't get hugs growing up, right? So when I have my kids, it's like I need to hug them so they're okay with being hugged. Like that was my first like, oh, I'm gonna change the cycle of my family. I'm gonna break it. I'm not
wow.
repeating it. But then people in my world like trying to hug me, and I'm like, no, don't hug me. And they're like, what? What do you mean? And I'm like, I'm not a hugger. You're in my privacy. If you're asking me, ask me, hey, can I give you a hug? That's cool. But don't just assume I'm gonna hug you like that. And that was so hard to maneuver into. And now people are like, hey, can I hug you? Are you good? And
That's
and they allow me
whoa.
to say yes, which is really, really powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there are people, that's just like making me think. I don't think I don't hug people unless it looks like they're gonna hug me, right? Like I guess I can intuit if that's okay, but I'm thinking there are so many people who just, yeah, like it just reminds me of trauma-based yoga when I was reading about that, right? Like you can't assume that everyone is okay to be touched because you don't know how everyone
Absolutely.
resides in their body, right? And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, you're giving me like this epiphany of, yeah, like you don't know where people are coming at with that, right?
Yeah. I think it's so important. But anyway, so
Consent, like
that,
consensual
that
touch on all
absolutely.
levels.
Absolutely. And I think that was part of my discovery of independence, right? And now and there's that balance of, am I too independent, too alpha, too much?
Nah,
And,
it's always in
it,
constant flow too, right? How you are
it is.
now, how you're going to be in a week, who knows?
Yeah,
You're
I
perfect.
don't. Oh, absolutely. And I think the important part for me was to communicate that with people that I'm close with, like even in my own relationship. I'm like, hey, I get I used to be like that, but this is what I'm learning about myself, and this is how we're going to move forward. If you're not okay with that, then that's that, right? If you're good with that, then we can work on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so I think
That's one thing
communication.
I like too, right? Is like, man, realizing that we are hopefully in constant evolution, right? And so, you know, living, like letting everyone around you be okay. Like, how do I want to say this? Like, since you're going to be constantly changing and hopefully everyone around you is going to be constantly changing, so too will the relationship. And like, is there a way, maybe sometimes relationships move outward, maybe they can come back, right? I feel like there's sort of been this solidity of like, of people being in roles and then not being able to handle when someone's shifting. And so that equals like the dissolving of a relationship. It's not bad that there's a dissolving of a relationship, but I think if we were more
Yep.
lucid with like the idea that we're in flow and we're not stagnant beings, then, you know, maybe relationship meltdown would be a lesser thing, or, you know.
Maybe, but I also think I do believe that people come into our lives on purpose and they leave on purpose, right? Like
Totally.
there is, we have people come in our lives, they either are mirrors, they're teaching us lessons, they're reflecting to us on how we may not want to be or how we want to be. Like, I believe that's a thing, and it's healing, right? Like I've definitely have seen other people like, oh, I don't want to be like that, where I then like, how do I show up like this? What do I need to heal, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll go away. Like when their time is done with you, they just kind of go away. And sometimes that's challenging.
And that needs to happen.
And sometimes it's very quiet, right? Like sometimes it just kind of
melts out into the background. Yeah.
I like wonder what happened to them, and all of a sudden you're not friends on Facebook with them anymore.
Yeah.
But so tell us what it is that you do and how you help people and how where they can connect with you.
Just trying to sneakily move to my cord because I noticed.
Okay.
I was trying to sneak. I was trying to be stealthy. So what I do, is I mainly, I do sessions over the phone that involve, so it's like a reading, but I would say over the last decade, over the last decade, sorry, my readings have changed a lot. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. My readings have changed a lot. Like I used to read like the lines of the palm, which is really weird to me because I can't see anything except the lines of the palm. So that was also kind of weird. And you know, it'd be like kind of future prediction. That's sort of what people wanted, right? They wanted you to tell them what their life was going to be. And then I did a really cool reading with a woman where I told her like this whole future prediction, like the places she would live, when she would have her kids. But I told her her partner wasn't a match and that she would probably end up in a different relationship. And she was like, no, I only want this partner. I don't want to have any more partners. I'm tired of that. So tell me what I need to do to accept, like, how can we fix that vibe, right? So whatever, I channeled whatever spirit had in mind for that. And then she called me like a couple of years later and said, I moved to Morocco, like you said. I moved to California, like you said. I met the person that would have been my potential other. But, you know, I fixed my relationship with my partner and now I'm pregnant with my third baby, right? And I was like, whoa. So she taught me that free will is a thing, right? I mean, I read about it, but I didn't know you could enact it that powerfully. And so the guide showed me kind of like I could do future predictive readings or I could try to help people up level. So I was like, okay, I pick the up level, you know? So my readings are kind of, sometimes if people ask like specific questions about the future, answers come through on that, but more it's like clearing blocks, reorganizing the energetic body, like the 5 layers of the aura, the chakras, right? So that people can like step into purpose or step into like do like, you know, a lot of healing, so that they're more happy here, right? They can inhabit their bodies in a more productive way. So I do this, most of my clients are by phone. I have like an office where I live too, but mostly everyone talks to me by phone. People can set it up online through my website, and then the sessions are about an hour long. Sometimes they go a bit longer depending on what we're working on.
So what's your website?
alivewithchristine.com.
Awesome. It will be linked on the blog once it goes live, so no worries about that. But it's always like, what is it, right? Because we want people to know where they can find you with you. because that's kind of the point. I absolutely loved our conversation. I think we could probably go on for hours.
Oh, so interesting to meet you as well.
um, but I want to keep it rather condensed, and maybe we'll do a future one. You never know. I always like to keep the door open. So thank you for being part of the conversation and sharing your story and having this really cool conversation about life.
Oh, thank you. So fascinating to talk to you.
Yeah. So thanks again. Oh, do you have a Facebook, social media, any kind of where people could connect with you there as well?
Yeah, on Instagram, alive_with_Christine. And then, my Facebook business page is, I think it's Living in Harmony, but it
It
links weird.
is.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I will have all that linked on the blog post so people can just connect through there as well. So thank you again for the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much.